what the prison gang leaders agreed to as a condition of being released, finally being released from the SHU, they agreed that they were going to stop and seize all interracial violence. Well, let me be the one to tell you, since 2014, all the way up to today, 2025, they have held up their end of the bargain.
The opinions of the guests and host are their own and do not represent the opinions of Ironclad, the Border Patrol, or the Department of Homeland Security.
Welcome to Borderland Narcosis, an Ironclad original presented by First Form. Don't forget to pick up your First Form supplements at firstform.com/borderland. My next guest is a friend of mine named Hector Bravo, who spent 16 years as a corrections officer in California, who wants to talk about some of the internal corruptions that he identified and noticed and is still fighting today. Sure. I normally would not be doing any kind of prison content, but it actually works and it actually aligns with the conversation. And me and you, we've been friends for a minute and haven't been able to connect. And by chance, we receive an email from an individual who goes by the name of Hold the Line. And he starts telling us about a bunch of corruption that's happening in the prison systems. Now, I don't want to create a podcast that's built on conspiracy theories. And so I was like, you know what? Me and my producer, we agree. Like, it sounds kind of far-fetched. It sounds on the line of conspiracy.
Oh, dude.
Well, that's what I say. Then I said, you know what? I have the right person to vet this with.
Yeah.
And I contacted you and I sent it to you. And this is just more for the audience to understand where we're going. And then you text me immediately. It's all true. And then I was like, oh shit. And so I contacted my producer. I said, let's go ahead and run this. And so we had Hold the Line on last week and he gave us his story. It is still, in my opinion, a little foggy as to how much corruption is happening, who's doing the corruption, and kind of the whole story. So I'd love to first, for the audience, we're going to go through all of this. And so if you don't mind, for the audience, please give a brief kind of bio of who you are in your career as a corrections officer and what that looks like now. And then we'll get into the details.
Cool. So my full name is Hector Bravo Farrell. I began working for the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation in the year 2006, all the way to 2022. That's a total of 16 years. I was an officer, a sergeant, a lieutenant, part of the crisis response team, the commander, public information officer, hostage negotiator, and ultimately I walked away after being exposed to the corruption.
Man, I've seen some of your clips online, and you go after them. You make a lot of and so like I want to give you the opportunity to really, if we had to, military style, the KISS style, keep it simple, stupid kind of thing, or soldier. They like us to use soldier nowadays because it's offensive. But I would love for you to give me a better understanding from the beginning to what is the corruption that Hold the Line was talking about. He mentioned things like the agreement to end hostilities. He talked about the big four. He talked about this 72-hour, the 72-hour risk. So there's a long list of things. Where do you want to start on this conversation so we can kind of get through it?
Well, to break it down Crayola style for the audience and Barney style, some people might think it's a conspiracy theory, but let's look at the reality of things in 2025 and how much social media has actually exposed corruption in the United States. I mean, all the way up to the FBI, big agencies like that. So CDCR is no different. And unfortunately, man, I was a perfect candidate to like follow the rules, learn the policy, procedure, and the law, but also morals and ethics. That's something we learned in the Army is values, integrity. And basically what it comes down to in a nutshell is the department and the person in charge, the CDCR secretary, has bent the knee, so to say, for our governor. And if you ask me, it's all about political and money agendas. This new model called the Norway model. where they wanted to adopt the prison system of Norway here in California, right? It doesn't become corruption until the inmates start killing each other, which they have. In the last 2 years, there's been 76 homicides in CDCR. I've never heard of 76 homicides in 2 years. The assaults on staff, the attempted murders on COs, level 4 escape, Cesar Hernandez, who recently escaped to Tijuana and killed a female high law enforcement official. So the corruption comes in where the false propaganda and narrative from the department saying, hey, this program is working, everything is fine, but in the background, it's bloody and carnage.
Why would they say that everything is fine if you stated those numbers? That sounds pretty crazy. And remember, I was a prison guard for 2 years, and in my 2 years, in 2 years, there was one death, and that was a suicide, right? That happens in the prison system. Right. And then there was one escape from a different prison down the street that, I further assisted with as a SORT member. And the way he snuck out, it'll never happen again because they found a hole in their system. If you have that many deaths in a few years, why would they be hiding that? What do they get out of that?
It boils down to personal agenda, ego, and selfishness. So it boils down to each individual and what their motive is for doing so. So at the highest level, you have the secretary. He's going to do it because he wants to please the governor. He's going to do it because he wants to remain in that position. Okay. And the ones that follow below, the administrators and the managers, they are doing it because they want to promote to the next level. So they will easily lie and twist numbers. And dude, you want to talk about like corruption, falsifying legal documents, fudging, cooking the books, as they say. All of this is happening, man. All of this is documented. That's why it boils down to what their motive is. Personal agenda, personal gain at the expense of human lives.
Well, let me go with this right here. So Hold the Line was talking about an agreement called the Agreement to End Hostilities. Do you know about this?
100%.
And can you explain how this was supposed to curb violence, but it actually kind of caused the opposite?
That in itself is not a true statement, but I'm going to explain.
Yeah.
So in the late 80s, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation housed all the prison gang leaders from the Mexican Mafia, the Nuestra Familia, the Black Guerrilla Family, and the Aryan Brotherhood in Pelican Bay State Prison. I'm sure we've all heard of Pelican Bay, the infamous Pelican Bay SHU program, security housing unit. They're locked in their cell 23 hours a day. All the way up from the late 80s to the year 2014. So 30 years, approximately 30 years, these men were in isolation in a box. They went on a hunger strike in the year 2012 to fight that, to show the public, hey, man, we're being mistreated. Our rights are being violated. We need to be let out of here. This is inhumane. Well, eventually, CDCR, they got sued, right? They got sued, litigation. Ashker versus the governor at the time. And part of the agreement, the prison gang leaders said, hey, if you let us out, we will do an end of all hostilities peace treaty, meaning we will end and seize all interracial violence within CDCR. Now, here's something to pay attention to. I came in 2006. Race riots were a thing. All the black inmates going off on all the Mexicans going off on the whites. Like, that's how California moves. They racially segregate themselves. So we're talking about 200-man riots, 300-man riots with knives. So to reiterate what the prison gang leaders agreed to as a condition of finally being released from the SHU, they agreed that they were going to stop and seize all interracial violence. Well, let me be the one to tell you, since 2014 all the way up to today, 2025, they have held up their end of the bargain. race riots came to a complete and grinding halt, with a few skirmishes here and there, but it was nothing like the ongoing violence that used to happen in the past. Simultaneously, I believe the tactic that the CDCR used to retaliate against those men, and I'm not vouching for those men, right? I'm just simply saying it how I saw it from my perspective. They began to mix general population inmates with sensitive need yards inmate, PC, protective custody. So basically, they were mixing gang members with child molesters. And you already know the result. The result's going to end in a murder. And then we started seeing increases of murders, stabbings, slashings. But simultaneously to that, they stopped holding inmates accountable for their actions. No more consequences. Instead, they began to reward bad behavior. And this is around the time frame where I jumped ship, man, because I saw the writing on the wall. Wanted no part of it. So things in the past where an inmate would get placed in isolation, ADSEG, the whole. Let's say an inmate is masturbating with exposure. In the past, he used to go to the whole ADSEG. Now he does not. So these are just all the weird changes that have happened.
So they just got more lenient. Wait, why? Let me back up, because this becomes part of the conversation. Why were they blending Gen Pop, general population, with PCs?
Memorandum came from the director at the time, this lady, and the memorandum stated, hey, inmates, you are expected to get along with your neighbors out on the streets, so we expect you to get along with everybody in here. Now, the average civilian might say, who cares? Let them kill each other. Who cares? Well, number one, right off the top, that is not ethical. Number one. Number two, you got to understand what happened. Once the inmates got tired of fighting, attacking, and killing each other, they turned all their aggression on the correctional officers for them putting them in those positions. And that's why we've seen a massive increase in attempted murders on correctional officers. I'm basically breaking it down to you how everything unfolded.
And do you think the government reforms, whether intentionally or not, has made it easier for the organized gangs and cartels to run the operations in the prison? Like, were these choices made it easier for I don't know how you define them, gangs or cartels or whatever's going on, but did those changes make it easier for them to control it?
So to answer your question, did the current changes in CDCR enable criminal organizations to operate better? Yeah. Through means of cell phones, drone drops, where they now fly drones over the prison and drop contraband, drugs, cell phones. Now, the feds, the federal government and federal law enforcement, they do a real good job of collecting evidence and charging these individuals through RICO acts, the racketeering in commission of an organized group or something. But definitely, they have enabled criminals to do their thing, man. They gave them the rope so they can hang themselves.
Who runs the prisons?
To be honest with you, the governor runs the prison, because the governor right now, current time, whatever he wants is going to happen. If Governor Newsom says, hey, I want a pony in the middle of this yard right now, you're going to have a bunch of idiots trying to find all the most ponies in the world and bringing it to that yard, which ponies are not abnormal in a prison, man. They have circuses for the inmates. They just had a banda with a female Latina singer, mariachi for the inmates. I'm for rehabilitation, right? But this is absurd, man. They had a dunking booth. You know those dunking booth where you sit in a chair and you're over a thing of water and somebody throws a ball and it hits a target and you drop? You literally had an associate warden sitting in that dunking booth and inmates throwing the ball at the target.
Yeah, that's a little crazy.
Picture of it.
I think I saw that. I think I saw that on your social media. You posted that, correct?
Bro. Yeah, dude.
Oh, man. Hey, guys, I want to give a shout out to a company I've trusted for over 11 years, First Form. They make high-quality supplements, protein powders, vitamins, performance products, everything you need to support your health, fitness, and recovery. Look, my weight goes up and down like a lot of us, but when I'm dialed in and focused on my health, these are the products I trust. Their Formula 1 protein powder is my go-to after every workout. Cinnamon Toast Crunch, hands down, is my favorite flavor. I use it after every workout and it tastes amazing. They have other flavors too, like salted caramel, red velvet, and chocolate mint cookie. Not a protein shake person? No problem. Their protein bars taste like candy bars, and my favorite flavor is cookie dough. All the First Form products are made here in the US. No junk, no sketchy ingredients, no BS. Orders over $75, ship for free, and if you don't love it, they'll actually give you 110% of your money back. Go check out firstform.com/borderland now. Well, let me add, there's a few other things here, right? Like the 72-hour risk is the 72-hour, I forget what they call it, but you've heard about that, how they're asking inmates to, now this might be just hold the lines experience on his, but they're saying in 72 hours, you have to attack either another inmate or a faculty member for them to protect you.
So when you said 72 hours, I instantly drew that conclusion to what you were detailing it about. And you got to understand the inmate politics, right? And if you're a good correctional peace officer, you will know your environment and the rules that the inmates operate under. Because not only do the inmates operate under our rules, but they have their own set of rules. It's its own world inside of there. I mentioned to you about mixing GPs and SNYs. Why would they put a gang member with a PC inmate? This is where the 72-hour rule comes in. But it happens less than that. Let's say you have a GP inmate that just got off of the bus at the local prison, and he knows that he's supposed to go to a bad yard full of protective custody inmates. If he remains on that yard, he will be deemed no good by his people, meaning his gang will attack him the next time they see him. So in essence, that's where the 72-hour rule comes in. He has 72 hours to get off, to commit an act of violence against the first person he sees, the inmate or the correctional officers, which I've experienced numerous times. So it's not a secret. It's not a surprise. The inmate knows he's going to get off, commit violence. The officers know he's going to commit violence. The supervisors know he's going to commit violence, but it's like we just go through the motions until it happens. And then, not always, they'll remove him and place him in ADSEG. I've seen numerous times where the higher-ups say, no, don't place him in ADSEG. Let him keep hurting people. I've seen that on numerous occasions. Till finally somebody drew the line, put their foot in the sand and said, no, we're locking this guy up before he kills somebody. Yeah.
Yeah, no, so when you say it that way, that's very common in the prison systems that I worked at as well. You know, as in like, hey, if they put you in, you gotta stand up for what others will see you as, how they'll think of you. And if you get put into, say, a room in SEG where the dude is, say, former child molester, whatever it is, you have to act on that, or else you'll be looked at as if you're accepting it. And and so that's the prison politics that, you know, I understand as well. When we talked to Hold the Line, I felt a little bit more as if there was some kind of deeper corruption that almost as if the higher ups of the prison system were being paid, or somehow they're rewarded for just kind of turning a blind eye. Is this something that you would agree with, or is it different? Is it more just like, why be a whistleblower when it's just going to cause more heat to your career? Is it more just kind of turning the cheek so it doesn't cause more issues?
So to answer that question about how far deep does the corruption go, we have a union, or I say we, I'm no longer employed. The California Department of Corrections officers have a union, the CCPOA. We recently found out and discovered that the higher ups, the president and the vice president, pretty much have an executive board that hangs out in Sacramento with the bigwigs of CDCR. We found out that once they retire, they keep themselves on the books as an independent contractor. and they're getting paid $100,000 to $200,000 a year from union paying dues money to be on call on top of their pension. So it's like, that's where I wouldn't say that's illegal, but it's definitely unethical, right? Is money being exchanged at the top? I've never witnessed money being exchanged at the top, right? But you want to talk about corruption? The Menendez brothers. Everybody knows who the Menendez brothers are, man. They're on the freaking Netflix. That was growing in the 90s. I saw it on television. Those two brothers were housed at the prison I worked at, Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility here in San Diego. For some weird reason, man, the higher ups love those guys, want those guys to parole. So every time they get a write-up, a captain or above will delete it. They'll delete it, man. So imagine like just deleting paperwork from the system. Dude, that's illegal. That is freaking illegal.
Why would they delete it? I have no understanding of why. What is the benefit to keeping them clean?
Again, man, word comes from the top, whether it be, like I said, up to the governor level, probably even higher. Because I see what happens. You got people like Rosie O'Donnell, Kim Kardashian. I know they got money. You had Governor Newsom. They all love the Menendez brothers for some sick reason. To me, they're just another inmate, right? Because that's exactly what they are. But you can see how the favoritism trickles down. And again, I can only assume it's an agenda where legitimately they get caught with contraband cellular telephones on the regular, and they just get deleted from the system, man. I know this because I have copies of their write-ups that have been deleted. To me, bro, you talk about like corruption, and we can go from deleting disciplinary actions to make a prison look better than it actually is, fudging the numbers, lying. How about lying, bro? As a peace officer, you're not supposed to lie. And all these managers do is, lie. But yeah, dude, it's wild.
Let me ask a couple other things here. Who runs the prisons? Now, I talked to Hold the Line. He gave me an answer for that. But what race currently runs the prisons?
The Hispanics, the Southern Hispanics.
In your time working in the prison system, have you seen there be some kind of cartel, I guess, footprints in the prisons?
The way the cartel footprints will be a member of the Mexican mafia or a member of either the Nuestra Familia or even the AB having contact with somebody down south in the border. Okay. As far as a cartel member being incarcerated in a California prison, they don't have the juice, the power that you think they would have. Those prison yards are controlled by the California prison gang members. Now, there was a group called Los Palillos. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but they were from down south, Tijuana. They were going around melting bodies in barrels of acid. Those inmates were at Donovan. But again, they just kind of flew under the radar. They were regular inmates.
They just house with Southern. They house with the Southerns.
Well, paisas. They usually run with the paisas. You got the Southerners, and you got the paisas.
Crazy. It's interesting. And the funny thing with paisas in prison is that you can have someone who's just been arrested for an immigration issue that houses paisas, and then you might have a cartel, or murderers, smugglers, and then just it's a big list of people. But they have a lot of numbers in the prison that I worked. They had all the numbers, and so they kind of ran the prison.
But if you want to talk about like who controls the drug trade in prison, it's definitely not like the cartel. No, they would be probably like lowest on the level. It's the prison gangs,
like the Mexican mafia and whatnot.
Absolutely.
How does that look in the prisons? Because out here in the outside of prison, the drug trade is really ran also by gangs that the cartel connects with and just uses them as a I don't even know, just a distribution kind of hub, if you will.
Correct.
When it gets into the prison, it changes where the power is the Mexican mafia. And I imagine they have some kind of respect towards anyone who's associated with cartel. but I'm sure they're protected as well. But inside the prison system, how does that hierarchy work?
Well, the hierarchy, you got to remember too, it's always like, I mean, they're humans, meaning they're probably thinking, what's in it for me, right? How does this relationship, how will this relationship like benefit me? So of course, if you have ties with a cartel member or somebody that knows a cartel member, they can see that as a business opportunity, right? Because ultimately they're business-minded individuals. They are extremely violent people, but they're violent when they have to be. Ultimately, their goal is to generate money through means of illicit activity.
The southern border doesn't just separate the United States and Mexico. It also splits political alliances, ideologies, and sometimes even families. And decisions about immigration, addressing cartel violence, and the border often dictates who will hold the most powerful positions in the world. But what if there was a resource that could cut through the background noise and give perspective from the front lines of the border crisis? I am Vince Vargas, former Army Ranger and Borstar operator, and the host of Ironclad's original podcast, Borderland. I am also the author of a groundbreaking book called Borderline that reveals the untold story of America's first line of defense and special operations of the United States Border Patrol. In the book, I give an inside look at the U.S.-Mexico border through events and life-changing experiences that I took part in during my years of service. I break down the distinct difference between border security and immigration policy through real-world scenarios and insights only available from the front lines. My goal is to counter misconceptions and misinformation about the highly volatile stretch of North America that connects the U.S. and Mexico. So head over to wherever you buy books and pick up a copy today. All right, so I'm hearing all this, Hector, and I heard hold the line, and I still want to know, where is this corruption and who do you believe is involved and what do they gain from this?
So the people that are involved are the governor of California, the Office of Inspector General, OIG, CDCR, and CCPOA. They're all in bed with each other. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened when I was a lieutenant, the public information officer, simultaneously the crisis response team commander. I was wearing numerous hats at the time. There was an incompetent captain, very incompetent, man. He promoted to captain in 9 years, which is unheard of. The dude, mental wise, was not there. Definitely should not have been a captain. The warden loved this guy. He loved him because he could get him to do whatever he wanted for him. Well, this captain made best friends with a Mexican mafia member, inmate Yoda, inmate Mendez, a.k.a. Yoda from Westminster. He personally had him transferred. The captain personally had that inmate transferred from High Desert, the most north prison in California, all the way down south to San Diego, something we have never seen before. To put him on the yard and to let him run the yard. Let him run the yard. The captain basically took all the power away from the COs, the sergeant and the lieutenant, and let the Mexican mafia member have his way. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand that a train wreck was about to happen as a result of the perceived power that the inmate thought he had. Well, in August of 2020, that inmate was drunk with a couple of his entourage bodyguards, and they were refusing to take it back into their cells during yard recall. Words were exchanged with the correctional officers, and that Mexican mafia member attacked those two correctional officers with homemade weapons, homemade knives, stabbed the cop in the mouth, knocked all his teeth in, took the officer's batons away, smashed the officer's face, crushed his face, his skull, took the officer's pepper spray away, pepper sprayed all the responding staff that were running. And I immediately got the call to come in from home because I was a public information officer. I see the blood on the ground, the puddle of blood. I see all the inmates in restraints. I helped organize the transport of inmate Mendez from Donovan to Calipatria State Prison. I made numerous trips to the hospital, saw the officer. Miracle he survived. And when we thought that that captain was going to get held accountable for his incompetence and gross negligence, there was an associate warden that wrote an email statewide and sent it to the press and said, hey, there is a corruption happening here at this prison. This was in the year 2020. There is a corruption happening here at this prison. This warden is corrupt. The chief deputy warden is corrupt. And this incompetent captain almost got 2 correctional officers murdered. Well, I was a public information officer and I received a phone call from the CDCR spokesperson stating, hey, associate director so-and-so is a female, wants you to type up a letter refuting A.W. Armenta's allegations of misconduct here at this prison. And I was on the phone. I'm like, refuting? Why would I refute? Why would I refute what he said? It's true. She hangs up, called me back and says, hey, don't worry about it. Cybel just typed one up to the media. Dude, I went onto the website to see what she had typed up. She typed up, CDCR headquarters has full support of the administration at Donovan. Armenta's allegations are unfounded and no misconduct had been, discovered. And I'm like, what the hell? How can she write that letter like a day later? An investigation hasn't even been completed. But that's when it dawned on me how high the corruption went in the department. You literally had the highest levels of the department hiding and covering up attempted murders on 2 correctional officers.
You know, when people say corruption's involved, I'm always going to like, well, the only reason why someone would be corrupt is if there's a financial gain behind it or position. Okay. Right? Business.
Well, you say position.
Yeah, maybe position. Okay. Maybe political position. What do you think? Why would be these individuals be willing to risk everything just for what if it's not money?
I'm glad you said that, dude. I'm glad you said that because corruption is not just about money. I mean, you could be corrupt in the mind and touch little children. That's corrupt. That's corruption. These individuals are sick. And one good, awesome thing about working in the prison is you get to observe human behavior, different personalities, right? You got all kinds of personalities. You have good and evil. Bottom line, it boils down to good and evil, man. You have narcissistic, egotistical maniacs working at the highest level of the department, right? Those type of people are in their own world. So they're not chasing money. They're chasing power. Power. The power of holding people's jobs in their hands, laughing about it, laughing about getting good cops fired. They're chasing power, man. That's a corruption. What do they say? They say something. Ultimate power corrupts or some shit like that. Dude, yeah, this isn't going to be like fucking mayor of Kingstown because that would be easy. If I had a fucking warden that was dealing drugs with an inmate, that's easy. That's fucking black and white. This right here is evil. This is like they'll smile to your face and stab you in the back and then tell you that they're doing the right thing. That's unethical. That's corruption.
You mentioned that the governor, you've said that they're involved. How are they involved? I'd love to understand that better.
If people pay attention to what is happening in California, you will see that you guys remember San Quentin State Prison, the old famous San Quentin State Prison?
Yeah.
There's a lady by the name of Bree Williams. All right, you want to talk about money and you want to talk about corruption? There's a lady by the name of Bree Williams. She came out of UC San Francisco. She started a company called Amend. All right. This is where the whole California, Norway model originated from this lady, Bree Williams. There's a website you can go to on the internet where you can see who has donated to political figures. I'm pretty sure you've seen that or heard of that. I'll be damned if Bree Williams and the company Amend have not been donating money to Governor Newsom. So the way they do it, you talk about money, they do it through these political funds, almost like laundering money is what it is. And it's like, hey, my name is Bree Williams. I have a lot of money. Governor, I will fund you if you enact this down the prison system. Now, is that out of good faith? Is that out of because they want to see the inmates reformed? No, somebody's getting paid. People are getting paid. So go back to Governor Newsom. Governor Newsom is on many CDCR news press talking about reform, talking about change. Money's going into his pocket is the bottom line. They recently spent $280 million of taxpayer money to transform San Quentin State Prison to some type of college resort for the inmates with, I don't know what they got going on, man, a coffee shop, a food market, social media platform for the inmates, dude. Now, if I had to guess what would happen in the future, I can only imagine that they're eventually going to close down San Quentin Prison and probably utilize that land, which is worth a lot of money, and that new infrastructure to benefit whatever goal or agenda they have. But that's down the line, that part.
What do you say to like the people who watch this that are going to be like, who cares what they do to these inmates? They're stuck in there anyways. What does it matter?
Because it's not just about the inmates. It's about, they do it to everybody. The correctional officers, me, a member of the public, a civilian. It's power. It's, and I can tell you right now, there's no guarantee that one of your loved ones is not going to end up in prison. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I don't know, as much great as I'm going to raise her, I don't know what's going to happen down the line.
Yeah, I know that. I mean,
hey, dude, let me tell you about how they were putting men in females' prisons. That was like a year ago. They were literally putting male inmates with male body parts inside of female prisons. Now, there was a lot of rapes taking place, but because the administration wanted to keep that on the down low, they were punishing the females that were speaking out, that were getting raped, the victims. And I had those ladies reach out to me and ask for help because of my platform and my stance.
That's corruption. We would give them a platform as well if they reached out to us, just so you know.
Okay, cool.
So you know.
That's corruption.
Man, it's you know, you mentioned Mayor of Kingstown, and there's some similarities to this from that show, which is fascinating to me. I just find it to be a little crazy, you know. And then thinking the corruption goes that high, same as what Hold the Line talked about, nonprofits that are putting money towards, which they say is reform, but eventually goes towards putting money towards political opponents that they want, that would kind of align it. I still sit here from a position of, I'm the middleman. I'm just listening to everyone's story and think somebody's got to benefit more than just power. In my head is how I feel. There's got to be more than just power. The prison system is a very strange place. And, you're right. You never know who's going to be there. I do believe there needs to be an ethical position in prisons. But at the same time, there's this really complex conversation here that is just, I don't know. I'm on the fence of this.
Well, right now you said you were surprised that the corruption goes as high as the governor of California, when we literally had Joe Biden covering up for his son, Hunter Biden, with crack, guns, and cocaine, and then pardoning him. That is the fucking president of the United States. Corruption has no end.
Yeah.
You had Hitler in Nazi Germany. Corruption has no end.
Yeah, let me ask you this. You've been putting this stuff out there publicly. You've been putting your face out there, right? Hold the Line doesn't want to put his stuff out there yet, but you have, and you've put your social media out there, and you continue to make posts about these individuals. You state their name, you put their pictures.
Yeah.
And in you doing that, has there been a risk for your own life, for your own safety, or just your own public? Like, are they trying to, deplatform you?
So I know that they're incompetent. I know that the majority of them in charge are incompetent. So I knew that I had a head start on them, meaning, they're not going to know what to do with me for at least a year. And that had been the case. We're at the 2-year mark now. And since then, I have had 3 search warrants issued on myself from the California Department of Corrections, man. I'm not even an employee. I have not been an employee for 2 years. They have gained access to my Google accounts, my personal email accounts, and it's all scare tactics in an attempt to scare their current employees to not have any communication with me. kind of like the Nazi Gestapo, the secret police. So they're trying. They have yet to publicly acknowledge me, but they are definitely speaking about me behind the scenes, because during training, when the new officers are getting trained, I may or may not have some audio video footage of the instructors saying, hey, don't listen to Hector Bravo. He's a disgruntled ex-employee.
Why would they consider you disgruntled?
It's a narrative, man. Everything's all about narratives. But for me, everything's about truth, facts, and documentation. For them, it's about narratives, spinning the narrative. Right now, I'll be honest, bro, I control the narrative. And for the first time in my life, or in CDCR history, you have these three entities on one side. You have inmates, the family members of inmates, and correctional peace officers in agreement that the administration is corrupt. So basically, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Wow. Do you have family members of inmates reaching out to you as well?
Bro, I'm busy all day long, man. You know, and that's where I find the passion and the drive and the purpose. This, you know, to be able to continue is because I truly enjoy helping people. So if I can help somebody, you know, navigate the legal process or ask questions about a form or a process, I have that experience. And I'm rewarded and blessed in the long run.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. Tell me, is there anything else that I'm missing in this, man? Anything else that you want to state to the public about this corruption that you and Hold the Line, I'm sure there's many others, feel and see?
This is what I want to say to the public. 2025 is going to be a turning point. For the first time in the history, we have gotten ahead of government. And now I'm not a government conspiracy theorist or anti-patriot of any sorts. I'm just a realist, man. I'm a hardworking man that got exposed to corruption. For the first time in 2025, we control the narrative. What they did not count on, the powers at be, were for good men to leave and give it all up. The money, the career, the title, and the pension to expose the truth. They wanted everybody to stay in line and stay on that hamster wheel. What you're hearing on these podcasts, not just my podcast, your podcast, everybody's podcast, you know, those are people's experiences. And if you listen, there's a lot of similarities, whether it ranges from New York, Florida, Texas, California, it's all the same thing. So I just encourage people to pay attention and wisen up. I'm pretty sure people don't even watch the news anymore because they're tired of being lied to.
Yeah, Hector, again, if there's other people that have the same side, please send them our way. We'd be interested in interviewing them. You know, this platform is just to try and tell the truth of some of the corruption, and there is, and I will guarantee there is some kind of cartel involvement in a bigger grand scheme of things. I'm just trying to find what that is, you know?
I bet, dude, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, brother, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that, bro. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, bro. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Borderland Narcosis, an Ironclad original presented by First Form. Don't forget to go check them out at firstform.com/Borderland. Try the protein bars. Best. Until next time, guys, we'll see you later.
Yeah, the messaging was, hey, we destroyed and vaporized Al-Qaeda, but they're back. I'm curious your thoughts. Did we really destroy them when we were there, or did we just push them into new territory and out of that region until they had time to come back?
You know, we never defeated Al-Qaeda. We hurt them badly. When we went through bin Laden's documents, I found numerous reports of Al-Qaeda talking about how they support the Taliban, how they help build the Pakistani Taliban, how they helped write the Pakistani Taliban charter, how they kind of got a little upset when they perceived the Pakistani Taliban, which, by the way, is just the Afghan Taliban on the other side of the Duran line or the border, how they were upset and ordered the Pakistani Taliban leaders to not poach Al-Qaeda leaders, things like that. So they never were defeated. It didn't happen. Remember President Bush had like a piece of paper and crossed names off, and it was 75% killed of Al-Qaeda's top leadership. Then President Obama did something, and another 66% were killed. And then, you know, how many times are we going to say that Al-Qaeda is, and then I just sort of mocked this. We used the D word when it came to Al-Qaeda.
Disrupt, dismantle, and defeat Al-Qaeda.
Decimated, degraded, defeated, done. But that's how they've been described. And that was never the case. Even when President Trump signed the Doha Agreement with the Taliban, you had Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, saying, well, the Taliban is going to destroy, yet another D word, Al-Qaeda. And I haven't tracked a single raid that the Taliban have done against Al-Qaeda.
Why would he say that? I mean, where in the history of the relationship between the Taliban and Al-Qaeda has that been the case?
It's wishful thinking. It exists. This is not a Republican issue or a Democrat issue. This is a foreign policy issue where we don't, and you said it at the outset, we don't understand our enemy. Meanwhile, Al-Qaeda is running training camps in 34 Afghanistan's provinces, safe houses, madrasa and for religious schools in 5 provinces, a weapons storage depot in Panjshir province. This isn't me telling you this. This is the United Nations Security Council's Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team. That was their last report in February. And other groups, like I described earlier, are also running training camps. This is all part of Al-Qaeda's network. And by the way, one of the ways I was able to track what the Taliban, what their goals and intentions were, was reading them on Voice of Jihad. It was their website. They published it in 5 languages. You know how many languages we published information on in Afghanistan? In 2. How are the Taliban able to do that? Absolutely. You know, it shows how organized they were, how committed they were to their cause. And they told us about what their intentions were. The Taliban do what the Taliban want to do. They impose their harsh version of Sharia. They're true believers. You know, people say, oh, well, they care about international legitimacy, but they don't. They'll take whatever legitimacy we give them, and we gave it to them with the Doha Agreement, and then by abiding to that Doha Agreement and the Biden administration's withdrawal. It's a nightmare in Afghanistan, and it's worse than it was pre-9/11. Sure, we are far better at security here in the United States internally, but the Taliban control 100% of Afghanistan. There is no Northern Alliance 2.0 that we can rely on for intelligence and support them and, you know, to get targeting information. Afghanistan has become a black hole, and when you give an enemy like Al-Qaeda the time, space, and security to recruit, to train, to indoctrinate, to plot attacks, I don't want to find out what happens next when they have this time and space. And we're not just there in Afghanistan, we're there in Syria now as well.
Can you imagine if we had a time machine and we could go back to just right after 9/11 and sit down with the Bush administration and be like, listen, if we do this on the plan that you want to do, 20 plus years from now, we're actually going to be equipping, arming, and housing the same Al-Qaeda organization in Afghanistan through U.S. equipment, resources, and infrastructure that we built. They would look at you and say, you're out of your fucking mind. There's no way that's going to be the case.
And yet here we are.